Welcome to Tiger Drop Films, and if you're a returning viewer, then I sincerely thank you for stopping by once again. Now, for today's video, I want to celebrate a franchise that's dear to my heart since childhood, that being the Transformers, who recently celebrated their 40th anniversary, and I can't believe they're already at their 40th. So for this video, I'm going to talk about a little bit on the history of Transformers and just overall this endless creativity that I've found in this franchise. One that's been able to reinvent itself time and time again these past 40 years. So, let's roll out and get into this. The Transformers first began with G1, with multimedia, from the iconic TV show with the incredible voice acting and amazing music, with memorable character designs, to the Marvel Comics with the American versions and the UK versions. And then you have the toy line itself, which came from Japan, from companies such as Takara and their Diaclone toy lines, where Hasbro took these Japanese action figures and they were able to bring them over to the United States and creating the Transformers that we know today. And what I find so fascinating is that Marvel writers such as Bob Budiansky and many others, all these creatives, were able to come together and name these Transformers and decide who's going to be Autobots and Decepticons, and just creating the overall Cybertronian conflict that we know today. But like I said earlier, this classic G1 conflict between Autobots and Decepticons fleeing Cybertron already took on so many forms from day one, with of course the TV show, the Marvel Comics from the United States, and the UK version, so we already had at least 3 versions of G1 from the get-go, and that itself spawned the franchise that we know today, with continual references to all these different parts of Transformers' origin. And this would even spawn to the first Transformers film in 1986, a film that I'm very proud to own the new Blu-ray over. I love that film. And as you look into this, we get to see how the Transformers have even evolved, as when 1996 rolled around, we got Beast Wars, a 3D animated show, and mind you, one of the first 3D animated shows that really was able to captivate new viewers on the idea of the Transformers, where in this time a new creative team came on and reinvented the Transformers into, well, the Beast Wars, a series that started off as a soft sequel to G1, now taking place on a prehistoric Earth, but also in the future, since instead of Autobots and Decepticons, there was Maximals and Predacons who fled from a future Cybertron to prehistoric Earth, where they continued their battle in the form of, well, the Beast Wars. And this is really a dramatic change. As you can imagine, the conflict of the Transformers and their design switching from automobiles and vehicles to animals has got to be pretty significant. I mean, can you imagine having to make that shift in marketing and just overall brand perception? And with it being the 90s, things are now even more metal and just badass than ever. And what I really love about the Beast Wars is just the comedy and just the overall character work. And as I said, this is one of the first 3D animated television shows, and they really were experimenting. It may look off-putting for people these days, but for me, I still love this show. It's just great. The voice acting is as incredible as G1 while taking on an identity of its own. And it's such a fun show with drama and comedy and action and even some really interesting introspective scenes between characters. And it really is a just amazing sequel to G1 while still being able to do its own thing. And the fact that Rise of the Beast came out last year and I adored that film, it felt like a good return to form of what Transformers is really about. Characters of a lot of heart and soul spliced into action between these alien robots. And I was really happy to see the Beast Wars return to the forefront of the franchise, even if for just a little bit. And I hope this means that we can see more Beast Wars, especially Predacons, in the future. But As the 90s came to an end, Transformers once again had to evolve, and this time it was more so about branching both the east and west sides of the franchise. For you see, even after G1 ended and during Beast Wars in Japan, they were still producing 2D animated shows that were, well, anime. And these Japanese shows explored their own continuity, such as, for instance, the Transformers having different names over there, such as Optimus Prime being known as Convoy, and just its own lore in of itself with the Headmasters and many more. But around 2001, things had to change. You see, this time it was about Hasbro and the American team working with Takara, the Japanese side, to produce an anime, or more so just have an English dub of these Japanese Transformers TV shows. Which brings us to 2001's Robots in Disguise, or Car Robots in Japan, from my understanding. And this show is really fascinating. The animation is incredible, and if you grew up on, say, any anime in the early 2000s, whether it's from 4Kids or just Pokemon in general, well, Robots in Disguise definitely scratches that itch of that aesthetic. It's a very visually appealing show. And the reason I'm bringing up this TV show, this anime, even though I haven't fully watched it because it's a pretty obscure TV show for the Transformers community, I just really like how I was able to blend the Autobot vehicle side of Transformers, bringing back that sort of G1 energy, with the Predacons from Beast Wars. And while these are two new interpretations of these factions, I just really like it. It's just such a fresh twist on the Transformers concept, building off the Autobots now fighting Predacons and Decepticons. And it's a bit of a flip of what we got in Rise of the Beast, where that film was the Autobots and Maximals fighting against the Terracons. I just kind of like that. It shows how the franchise is able to switch its gears and what it has already established and even merge them together. And this idea of Transformers anime being brought into the West carries over to a TV show that I remember watching as a kid and I've been revisiting and trying to fully watch now. That being Transformers Armada. A show that stands on its own two legs, once again taking that dubbed anime style while really branching into a new commercialization of the Transformers, that being, once again, it's the Autobots and Decepticons fleeing from Cybertron onto Earth, but now the conflict is about the Minicons, these little Transformers that don't really speak, but they have their own personalities, but they basically serve as these new weapons of warfare that the Autobots and Decepticons are fighting over. You can kind of see a bit of the precursor to the Allspark with these guys. By that I mean just having this sort of, for lack of a better term, MacGuffin for the Autobots and Decepticons to be fighting over. But Transformers Armada is a really good show. We get Gary Chalk and David Kaye returning to play Optimus Prime and Megatron, this time the Autobot and Decepticon versions, if you will. And yeah, I think my fondest memory of Armada is the old PS2 game just called Transformers, I think 2004. Yeah, Transformers 2004. And I have a lot of fond memories of playing that game, from the snow level to the ocean fight with Tidal Wave and the volcano fight with Megatron. It's a hard game, mind you, but yeah, that aesthetic, that game really helped me form a connection to Armada. And if you look at this anime era of Transformers, you'll see there was a bunch of toy lines from Armada to its sequel series, and that also holds a special place in my heart, to Transformers Cybertron, the third entry in the so-called Unicron trilogy. Now, Cybertron is the show I still need to finish or watch, but we have these three shows, and there was this toy line at the time called Transformers Universe. I still have some of the little transforming manuals from that time, and some of the figures too. Man, I remember seeing these toys on, well, toy shelves. Man, what a trip down memory lane it is for me. But yeah, this whole era of Transformers with that specific logo font for the Transformers themselves that carried over from Armada all the way to the Universe toy line, it really just puts a smile on my face, But as it stands, this was truly an era that once again showed the endless creativity of the Transformers by redefining them. And by that, like I said, we got to go from Armada and the Minicons to Energon being about, Energon and the Transformers taking on new forms and power-ups, such as the Optimus, where he has his trailer and these little guys pop out of it and he becomes a new Super Optimus form, to Megatron getting new designs and even more Galvatron recolors, and we even got to see the Quintessons return, and just stuff like that really sticks out to me, with the style of Transformers at the time. And this all culminates in my favorite Transformers TV show of all time, that being 2007's Transformers Animated. A show that was made with Western animators, the team, but it still incorporated that anime style. And this time we got to see Transformers finally return to their names. By that I mean they finally got to use the name Bumblebee and so many other characters. It wasn't just, Optimus, Megatron, and Starscream being the only quote-unquote consistent characters that they got to keep their name in the past couple of years. This time we got to have Bumblebee, the Constructicons, Shockwave, and Soundwave, and it's just all the names from G1. We got to have a proper G1 aesthetic with an anime style, and I really think this is a great culmination of the past couple of years of Transformers. Hell, the past decade even, as animated includes a few Beast Wars characters, mostly Black Arachnia and Waspinator. But we get to really see this cool idea of the Transformers in Detroit, where their technology has developed into making it a futuristic city, and the Autobots are portrayed as heroes. They don't use guns in this show, at least they hardly use guns. It's more so just them learning to work as a team and using their unique abilities, kind of like, superheroes. And this show brought back David Kaye, but this time he plays a younger Optimus Prime. And I really love how this show is able to make the Prime just a high rank, with Ultra Magnus at the top. And then you have Curry Burton returning to Transformers since G1. He was the original Shockwave, and he does reprise his role as Shockwave here, but notably he plays a Megatron, an incredible Megatron that is gigantic and intimidating and so calculating. So seeing David Kaye, a prominent voice actor from Beast Wars and Armada, the whole Unicron trilogy, to him going against a G1 voice actor of Curry Burton playing Megatron, it's great stuff. There's a bunch of classic Transformers actors reprising their roles, and I think it's crazy that at this point the franchise was almost nearing its 25th anniversary, and they already had so many iterations, so many TV shows, and just unique toy lines that illustrate what Transformers is all about. For instance, if I were to flash forward to today, right now in 2024, the past 2 years or so, we've had a new toy line called Transformers Legacy. That's been a blast to collect here and there when my wallet allows me. For instance, I got the new Transformers Armada, Megatron, and Starscream, and I even got a few Beast Wars characters, and a sideswipe from the 2010 War for Cybertron game. My point being that I love that all these eras of Transformers that I've talked about so far have been represented today. And we even got this massive HasLab release that's upcoming with Optimus Prime and Ultra Magnus from the Robots in Disguise TV show, where they form and become Omega Prime. I mean, what a beastly figure. Like I said, I never really watched that particular TV show, but that figure is just so appealing, and it makes me want to go back and track down Robots in Disguise and truly check out that show. You know what I mean? We get to see so many eras of Transformers honored, replicated, and just shown off in 2024. It truly is a great time to be a Transformers fan in time for the 40th anniversary. But alas, let's go back to talking about the TV shows and history of Transformers. So, Transformers Animated. Yeah, it came out in 2007. I remember when the show first came out. And one thing I do remember noticing is how Animated was about the All-Spark, at least for about the first season and a little bit in season 2. But with it being about the All-Spark was mostly done because of, well, I think we all know what happened in 2007, the first Michael Bay Transformers film where the whole conflict was about the All-Spark. So there's a little bit of brand synchronization back then, but I do think that it was just fascinating how we got Transformers Animated, a show that really was a return to form of having a more G1-ish style aesthetic and a style of anime with a bunch of fan service and so many voice actors at the time returning. And then that same year we got such a wild departure that was the 2007 Bayformers film. A film that also had just 5 Autobots, but it was them fighting a bunch of Decepticons, and well, we all know how that film went. It's pretty hyperactive, and it has a classic soundtrack, and the fights are incredible. There's a bunch of robots getting blown to pieces, and incredible cinematography, and just moments that you, me, and every Transformers fan can recollect. And I do think that it was interesting to see how that 2007 film was able to bring Transformers back really into the mainstream. And then Revenge of the Fallen would come out in 2009 for the 25th anniversary. And, 2009 was like the year every film took place in the desert, felt like. But anyway, in 2011, we got Transformers Dark of the Moon to really cap off the Bayformers trilogy. Oh man, I remember being in Chicago around 2010 and they were filming Dark of the Moon, so that definitely stuck in my mind. I remember getting the Dark of the Moon video game and when it came out and just collecting all the toys from Walmart. Good times for this old sailor. But one thing that really stuck out to me about Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon was that the main plots of these films, when it comes to the antagonist, were based off of G1 episodes. Maybe I'll make a whole video about that later, but for instance, Revenge of the Fallen is about the Sun Harvester, which was taken from an older G1 episode where Megatron himself is trying to create the Sun Harvester device to take energy from the sun and create Energon. And then Dark of the Moon is taken from a two-parter that I love from G1 called Megatron's Master Plan, where he, is able to trick the humans into sending the Autobots to space. And then he tries to kill the Autobots while they're in space, but wouldn't you know, the Autobots figure out a way to get away and come back to Earth and finish the fight. I just found that interesting how, the Bayformers, at least that first trilogy, there's a lot of nostalgia for it for me too, but for all the weird choices they took when it came to the screenwriting, it was fascinating to me that Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon are about some G1 plots. That really stuck out to me. There's even that shot in Dark of the Moon where Megatron destroys the Abe Lincoln statue and sits in that spot for himself. You know what I mean? So it definitely was fan service and acknowledgement of classic Transformers, even back in the heyday, the height of Bay's Transformers. So I do appreciate that. Now, when it comes to Age of Extinction and The Last Knight, no, those films do not have my blessing. Just the first 3. But then, during this same time, we got Transformers Prime, which is such a badass show. A show that I also have a lot of fond memories for. And Transformers Prime was a return to 3D animation, kind of like Beast Wars. And this time we got to have Peter Cullen back as Optimus Prime, and Frank Welker back as Megatron. What a great return, having these legends back, being able to finally bounce off each other for the first time in decades, besides, say, the Revenge of the Fallen video game, They actually got to have conversations and talk as the classic Optimus and Megatron, but now in a new modern light, at least at the time. And by modern, I mean just, a new aesthetic for a TV show for Transformers, a new style, that's all. And Transformers Prime is a show I definitely recommend, just like Animated, Armada, and Beast Wars. It's definitely worth your time. And during the same time, around the early 2010s, we got the War for Cybertron duology, with War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, 2 amazing video games that I really hope they're able to remaster soon. And these games are able to take, once again, a more rustic realistic-ish style for Transformers, but married it with the G1 aesthetics, as it's a prequel to G1 in a way. As in, it does its own thing, it's its own continuity, it's separate from everything else, but it has a lot of homages, and you know where the Cybertron games were leading up to, some kind of G1 continuity. And I think above all, I gotta give the Cybertron games credit for bringing back Stan Bush to compose music for Transformers. You guys know Stan Bush. He did part of the songs for the '86 film, such as The Touch and Dare, and he even recorded a few songs, or at least one song, for the 2007 film that didn't get used, but it's a really good cover of The Touch. So Stan Bush did some really great songs for the Cybertron games that you should definitely check out. They're the ones that play over the end credits. It just really is a celebration of all things Transformers. And I would definitely consider this entire era, at least the first 25 years of Transformers and some change, to really be a heyday, just when Transformers is continuously being reinvented, with pretty good results most of the time, and shows that truly stick out to me, and a few films that definitely hold a place in my heart, and some incredible video games as well. So I really think that this era really highlighted so many eras of Transformers, but this era definitely fizzled out after a while, with the last two Bayformer films not really hitting that same mark. But I do think that the golden nugget from this last couple years, as we got into the later 2010s after this golden era, was probably Transformers Devastation, a game that I love. It's a great sort of beat 'em up game that you have to use your head if you want to survive, and it's a great return to form with the G1 aesthetic. And not only did it bring back Peter Cullen and Frank Welker once again, but it also brought back a few other G1 actors. That's just such a highlight for the game. Like, seriously, if you can find Transformers Devastation, play it. It's a beautiful game with a kick-ass soundtrack, and just it's a very just classic arcade feeling game with a bit of an open world element to it. I highly recommend it. So after Transformers Devastation, we then move into even more of the later 2010s, where we got The Last Knight, which was, well, The Last Knight. But then we got the Bumblebee film, which was a breath of fresh air for Transformers. I remember being on a trip in Maryland when I saw this trailer drop, and I was so hyped. I can't believe, 2018 was like 6 years ago. But as it stands, Bumblebee was really kind of the end of an era. I'm glad we got it after The Last Knight, but it still was part of what I would call the beginning of a dry spell for Transformers. It would go many years without really anything significant in the franchise. No other film, nothing animated, no video games besides some mobile games and some collabs. And even on the TV show side, there really wasn't anything to write home about, I'll be honest. I think all there really was the other Robots in the Skies TV show that was its own thing. That one was alright. And then we got some weird machinima TV shows, and then we got the Netflix anime trilogy, which was, I'll be honest, just not good. But after this dry spell, and the toys are still pretty good for the most part, we finally got to 2023. So after these 5 years, we finally got a new film that genuinely seemed to bring Transformers back to the forefront, at least a good step in the right direction. Well, we got Rise of the Beast that brought the Beast back. Then we got a bunch of new toy lines and a new video game announcement that I hope is good. And overall, we got a new TV show, Earthspark, which is okay. But we're also getting Transformers 1, a new animated film that seems to be homaging an old episode of G1 that talked about the origin of Optimus Prime and a few other characters. So I think my point being is that Transformers is back. Slowly but surely, we're back. And I really hope Transformers is able to reach that heyday era from Beast Wars to the Cybertron games, that whole era of just Transformers being so fresh and new, where it feels like everywhere you went, there was a new Transformers TV show and idea coming down the line. So I hope that with Rise of the Beast, Earthspark, Transformers 1, and a bunch of new toys and comics, and hopefully some more video games, I hope that Transformers is able to redefine itself once again. And I hope that it's able to balance homaging and honoring the past, but still being able to do its own thing and forging a new path for the future. You know, really making Transformers feel like something where there is more to it than meets the eye. And all in all, I know I kind of rambled for this video, but I gotta say, happy 40th anniversary to the Transformers. This is its year, and I really am looking forward to the future Transformers, a series that has held a great place in my heart, and I'm really looking forward to more. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Really, I appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe, and check out my other videos that they might interest you. I've been Tiger Drop Films, and I'll see you in the next one. Till all are one.